Okay, so we're at season 2, episode 1. We've decided to make seasons this time because we went to 25 episodes so far, so we're gonna call that season 1. So last week when we left off here, we had stuff like this, and I was telling you how to prevent chemical reactions. So let's get started with that. There is a couple ways to do this. One is you can just take Bondo and just smear some Bondo down in there like that. Okay, this is an important thing to know. This is a plug. It's a plug that I'm making off of a plug because I need this seam for the mold. So if this was a mold, an actual mold, I wouldn't use Bondo. I wouldn't do that. What I would do is I would get tooling gel. I'd mix a little tiny bit of Cabasol with it, just a little bit, and I would have filled that with tooling gel and Cabasol. But all these little things on the edge here, since I'm going to throw this away when I'm done with it, I can go ahead and hit those with Bondo. And the reason we're doing that is to prevent a chemical reaction from happening. Got another one over here. I'm going to hit that one. So I'm going to do all my little Bondo sealing. And then there's another trick because we have an edge right here, an exposed edge. That is bad. That is just prime spot for some chemical reactions to start happening. So I'll show you how to get that all sealed up and how to prevent it from alligatoring on you. Here's the other way to keep chemical reactions from happening when you're doing layup. You just get some resin. This is one thing I had a hard time deciding if I was going to tell anyone this or not. I've never seen anybody else do this. It's kind of an industrial secret. Anyway, you get some resin and you catalyze it really hot. And by hot, I mean normally 20 ounces of resin takes 5 cc's. I put 20 cc's in this, and it's not even a full cup. You can see it kind of bubbling because it's really hot. Like this is what we call a hot batch. And I let it sit in there for a little bit, like not depending on the temperature. So it's like 40 degrees here. I've let it set for about 5 minutes. I let it change color because when you mix it, it's blue. And just kind of let it get to a point like kind of like that frothing a little bit there. And then what you do is you take that. Here's another important thing, just all the little details of how to do this stuff right. So when you have your brush, your chip brush, normally we keep it in acetone, like you'll have it in a bucket of acetone. When you take it out of that bucket, make sure you clean all the acetone off of it. It's really important to get this brush dry. I mean, you don't have to like surgically clean it, but make sure that it's not like dripping acetone into this and you get acetone on anything. It'll cause a chemical reaction that way. So what we do is we take the brush like this, and then all we're going to do is we're just going to coat this edge, and it's going to seal that edge down like that. A real light coat. The only thing that has to happen is this resin has to just come into contact with it. It'll actually start to kind of separate a little bit, but just get it in contact with it one time, like that. Do all of the red that you're going to lay up, and that'll keep alligator from happening. You seal it up with resin is what you're doing. So there's two things. One is called an air ply, and when you do an air ply, it's when you use 1.5 ounce mat, or if you're spraying a chopper gun, you spray a really light layer on there, and it does what it is in the name. It's an air ply. It's to get all the air out because the air can transfer or pass through that material really easily because it's so thin. This is what we call a skim coat or a resin coat. So you put your skim coat down, then you put an air ply down. You let the skim coat completely cure though. It's important to let it completely cure. Don't get too much. Like if you let it pool up, here, I'll do it just to show you. Let's say you just get a blob of it like that right there, right? Don't leave it like that because what'll happen is that resin will shrink up that radius. It can prematurely pull your gel coat away from your plug. So it's important to make sure it's just a good thin layer. Don't tell anybody my secret. I've been doing that for, I think, 20 years or more, and I've never seen anybody do it. So I've revealed my secrets. Now I'm no longer important. The internet will be done with me. There it is. It's coated with resin. And you see down here how it's starting to pool up. So you got to come back and kind of clean that out a little bit. Here's another important thing to know about tooling gel. Tooling gel, gel coats, and polyesters, if you're spraying your mold with it, don't touch it ever with your fingers or your gloves on or nothing. It's sticky. And the reason it's sticky is because it doesn't fully cure, because the resin goes to it and softens it up, and then it forms a chemical bond with itself. And that's the only time it actually ever cures, is when it's void of oxygen. So you'll have gel coat that'll have wax in it. It'll say with wax. That's for repairing something that's already gel coated, like the outside of a boat. That wax surfaces in on the top of the gel coat when it cures out, and it creates this seal to not let any oxygen in, and that's how it cures itself out. This stuff doesn't have wax in it, so it's sticky. And if you touch it, it can stick to your finger. And when you pull your finger off, you'll pull all your tooling gel off with it. So there's another little piece of advice if you're doing some tooling or molding. Don't ever touch tooling gel in a mold, even on the edge or anything. It'll come off, and you'll have to start all over. So we got our resin on there, and I know I said not to touch it, but I'm going to show you some stuff about how it cured out on there. My wife's got me in here polishing her cast iron pans for her on the CNC mill, which is cool. I'm earning points today, impressing my wife. That's what I'm doing. Okay, so let's check this out really quick. So this resin's cured out on here. It's all done. You don't want to leave this for more than 24 hours. You want to get to it as fast as possible as soon as it cures up, because that resin will try to shrink up on you. If you can see this right here. You see how that's all separated right there? That's fine. It looks bad. It looks like it's going to do something to you or mess up, but it's not going to. I got Oliver helping me right now. Hi, buddy. Say hi to everyone. Okay, so let's get back to this. That's normal. Don't try to coat that anymore. Don't keep rubbing it with the resin or nothing like that. It's really natural for it to do that. As long as the resin comes in contact with the gel coat or the tooling gel, you're fine. See, it kind of did it down the sides down here. See how that texture breaks up? So nothing to worry about. I'm going to put one layer of 1.5 ounce mat on it right now. The other thing I wanted to show you was this corner right here, these hard radiuses. When you're making molds or tooling, do not fill those with Cabasil or milled glass fibers or anything like that. I'll show you how to do that without putting in the additives. Milled glass fibers aren't that strong. People try to act like they are. They're just a mat in a liquid form, but the resin content generally is too high to keep any strength when you have tooling or parts. Even when you make parts, you know, I watch people just Cabasil the hell out of everything. Cabasil is just resin with fumed silica. The resin's weak. It doesn't have any fiber content. So I'm going to show you how to do that without putting in these additives and to make a really strong part or a strong mold. Okay, remember how I said metal rollers are important? This roller's locked up. I didn't clean it very well. So I'm going to burn the resin out of it. You gotta be careful because the material the roller is made out of isn't that good. It's kind of like a pewter or peter or whatever the hell that cheap metal's called. It's like a aluminum, but aluminum with a lot of magnesium in it. You can melt it really quick. So don't hold it in there. Just kind of burn it out of there. I've had this roller for 20 years, and this is why. Because every time I forget to do it, I can clean it. All right, let's talk about how to make this hard radius without using fillers. I got one layer of 1.5 ounce fiberglass mat, and what I did is I cut the edge really straight. Actually, it's this edge. I cut the edge really, really straight. You can also just use the factory edge off of your roll. And then what you want to do is you stick it in there, you put that edge, just put it up against her like that. See that? Butt it up there. Just like this. It's also how you prevent it from draining when you're doing vertical surfaces. Butt the fiber all the way in there like that. See that? Now all you do is you just roll that in that direction, or just kind of dab it down with your brush. Make sure you don't get a lot of resin content, because that's defeating the purpose. Don't get puddles of resin. So now when you have that hard angle, that sharp angle like this, where my finger's coming together, see? You got tensile strength from the fiber content of the material, instead of having like additives like the fumed silica, the Cabasil, or the mill glass fibers. Some people use Bondo. I've seen all kinds of stuff. That's how you make a good strong edge for a part or a mold, instead of using Cabasil. See, I'll just take my brush and I'll kind of just dab it, and what I can do is I can stab it forward. It looks like I'm just dabbing, but what I'm doing is I'm hitting it and I'm pushing it forward. As the material becomes more malleable, I can push it into that corner more. So I'm not actually just stabbing down on it, I'm stabbing down and forward like that. You know, the brush is a tool. A lot of people don't know how much you actually use this as a tool. So then you see this resin in here, you kind of want to just take some of it out of there. It's really easy to get out. You know, just take your brush, then you take your brush and you just clean it on the edge of a brush or a cup or something, or whatever you got that you're mixing your resin in. That's called extracting resin. It's pretty simple. That way you don't have any voids in there and you don't have any fillers. You can come in and you can put another piece on the vertical surface like this. Just like you put this one, now put one there, and then make the corner. You let that set up, and then you can make the corner. I want to show you guys how to do these corners too. Like that. I showed you how to roll one over the outside, but this is an inside corner. This is what I do. You know who is a very, very valuable source of information for this stuff? Seamstress. If you know a seamstress, or anybody who is a seamstress, or I don't know what the male and female of that is. Anyway, man, they are a really, really good source of information of how to get material into places, because they kit all the time. And yeah, I've always picked their brain on how to do it. Anyway, this is how I do this. I make the corner, I go like this. I'm going to cut this piece off for an example. I'm going to show you something. So I put it in the corner there. Now where your pleat is at the bottom, that's what that's called. That's called a pleat. Make sure you get coverage on that pleat. You can go down and you don't have to necessarily cut the triangle at the bottom of your pleat. You can kind of just cut it straight. Sometimes you got to triangle the bottom of it to get it to fold over right. This is what people do. They grab a piece of wet cloth or wet fabric like this, and they tear it apart like this, and then they stick it in the corners. And that drives me nuts. I can't stand that. I don't do that because it doesn't make good quality parts. It doesn't make good quality molds. The difference between an aerospace product, a quality aircraft product, and boat parts, and I don't mean to sound mean, but we say boat parts are in the boat industry because they're not very good quality at all. Boat parts are very low quality. The difference is just a little bit of technique. That's it. A little bit of time, a little bit of technique, and a little bit more effort. The reason I was talking about the Cabasil and the mill glass fibers and all that stuff down there in that seam is because we're not allowed to use that stuff in the aerospace industry. You cannot put Cabasil on an aircraft part. Absolutely not, no way. So you learn how to do it a little bit different and, in my opinion, a little bit better. It's a better, just more craftsmanship where you're actually making it the way that it's supposed to be made and you're not being lazy and using fillers. And pleating the corners. You're not tearing it apart and stuffing stuff in there. You're making sure that your laminates are locking up properly. Because if this was cloth and not matte, you want to make sure that you lock up that plus minus weave. Our 1.5 ounce fiberglass mat is all cured. So again, I'm just going to give it a light once over like that to get rid of any burrs that are sticking up. And again, this isn't for adhesion purposes. It's just to make sure that your next layer is going to lay down really well. If you have a little burr sticking up, you'll never get it to lay down on that. And then, yeah, I forgot to show you guys the difference between 1.5 ounce and 3 ounce. I just been saying 1.5 ounce and 3 ounce. So let's go over to the cut table and talk about the difference real quick before I put my layer 3 ounce on this. So the difference between 1.5 ounce and 3 ounce obviously is the thickness. but I wanted to show you how thick it actually is. So this is the 1.5 ounces. It's pretty thin. You can kind of see through it. See that? And this is for air plying, or if you want a light part, you can make, you know, just something out of that. It's for when you're making your mold, the beginning of your mold, like I've been showing you guys. So this is 3 ounce. See, I put my hand behind it. You can't even see through it. It's really thick. You're supposed to be able to see this. How I can take it and I can peel it in half. See that? That's supposed to be 2 layers of 1.5 ounces. Like that. It's actually a little bit thicker than the 1.5 ounces. So I honestly think it's like 3.2 or 3.4 ounce and not 3, because if you do that peeling apart like that, this side that's supposed to be the 1.5 ounces, an 1.5 ounces, it's thicker. So that's the difference, obviously. This stuff is extremely malleable, really quick. It's easy to get the air to transfer through the mat, so you don't get a bunch of voids. And then when you lay your 1.5 ounces down, like I've been doing, you don't have to wait for it to fully cure. You can just lay your other layers right up over the top of it. I've just been doing it because I want to make sure I get all the air out of these things, and just for demonstration purposes. But you can lay your 1.5 ounce mat down, and then you can lay your 3 ounce right over the top of it before it even cures. There is the last layer of the 3 ounce that I put on there. So I'm gonna come back tomorrow and I'm gonna pull this apart and we'll trim it up. And I'm gonna put it side by side with everything we've done in this process, from the metal to the plug I made off of the metal to the plug I made off of the plug. And we'll just kind of explain it a little bit more tomorrow. And then we have to make this, there's another seam right there, so I have to do this process all over again with the centered seam. One thing real quick before you leave is go around and look at all your edges, you know, and make sure you don't have anything hanging over. I still forget to do this. I get done and I just want to leave. I'm like, okay, I'm out of here. And then I forget to look for things that might curl over and cause voids or fall off. Like you see this piece right here, look at that. That's a great example. So it's already trying to fold itself over. You see that? That might actually just peel itself off and land down. So look for all that stuff. Make sure that your stuff's all laid back over there. I don't have gloves on. I don't really want to touch this stuff. All right, I'll do it anyway. So this piece right here, you know, that would have caused a problem. That would have came off of there. Make sure it's all folded back. Not completely over like this, because you still need a vantage point to get your wedges in there. There's a little spot right there. Make sure that's gonna, this is a good tip too right here. This, just kind of direct that backwards. See how the weight now, it's over there. It'll stay that way. I've had a lot of times I've come back just because I forgot that little thing, and it will just peel itself off and land over there, and then you got to grind it out and relaminate it. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow. We are going to tear this all apart now, start popping this off there, drill our registers like we did in the other video. I got to put some new registers on this, and trim it down and get it put back on there. As we're getting this ready to pull, we're clecoing it and making our register marks. You want to get really close to this edge, as close to that edge as you can with clecos, to hold that edge down to your plug. And then also, you don't want to pull any of this plastic off of here until you got all your registers and going, because somebody could come along, they grab this plastic, yank on it, and it could disturb that molding surface, and you'll lose your register marks. You could generally put it back by eye, but man, there's nothing like putting it in place with registers before you take it off. It'll go exactly where it was, and you don't have to worry about trying to find where it was. Here's a part of the video that was really boring and I was drawing pictures of. It was about this edge. So it's kind of hard to see. You see that right there, how it's got a little bit of stuff under it? I'm going to sand that smooth. But if this was a mold, you'd be stuck with that. You can't really see it right here. This is really, really fragile stuff. And it'll break and chip really, really easily. So I got it pretty good. See how it just flakes off there? But if you don't pay attention to that, you'll end up with a bigger version of these little bleed marks. and it'll screw your mold up real fast. It'll just break all the way down the seam. See, this one I really paid attention to. That, and then that, and this corner right there. I'm going to clean that up by hand, but this is that corner that we made out of Bondo. So see, the Bondo stayed on the plug. And then now we can shape this. That's how you change the radius quickly on a plug instead of trying to do it on your mold or a plug. This is still a plug. This is part of the master, or not the master. This is our plug for making the mold, and then we'd make a master. But yeah, a lot of stuff. I'm gonna get this trimmed out. Then I'm gonna set them all side by side. I'm gonna show you from the metal to copying the metal to this. All right, let's recap here real quick. So we went from this piece of metal that we had on there. You remember that piece of metal? So from that piece of metal, I made this piece right here. And that's a mold of this, or a splash, or a plug. I would call it a splash because I'm not using it. So this metal's garbage now. This piece that I made off of the metal is garbage. This is what I wanted. This is a copy of that piece of metal. The reason we did that is because this will flex. So when you have your mold, you'll have 3 layers of 3-ounce mat minimum. And if you had a piece of steel on there like that, you won't be able to flex it off of there. A lot of people will use stuff like playing cards and stuff to make their seams. I've seen all kinds of stuff. And that's cool when you're doing stuff at a hobby level, you know, like arts and crafts stuff. And I'm not putting it down. I'm not being condescending. I'm just saying that's great to do it that way because you're only making one part off of that, maybe, or a couple, or maybe 10. This is more of the industrial standard for the industry to go in and make this tooling, is actually what it's called, to make the tooling to make your mold to where you'll potentially be able to make hundreds of parts out of it. So now this piece right here is exactly what I want. I know that it functions the way that I want it to because I've pulled a mold off of it now. I know that there's no negatives. I know it releases well. I know that it fits the plug perfectly. And yeah, when I'm done with this, this will be garbage too. So one of the reasons you don't see this is because it is a lot of work to get these things done. Usually people will just mold off of this steel. And I don't want to do that because I don't trust that steel to not prematurely pull the mold when I try to separate the two. This, I can go to bed at night and go, okay, I don't have to think about my mold prematurely pulling apart when I pull that seam plug off of it. So that's it. Now I got to go and we got another seam plug, one more. We got to do this process all over again. So everybody probably forgot about this piece, this metal piece right there that I got to make. So now we got to do that process all over again. We got the plug that we made from the steel plug, and then we made a plug from that, and then we made this plug. So now I got to do it all over again on that piece of steel right there. And this is why people don't do this stuff. It's kind of redundant. You got to make a part from the part that you made, that you fabbed up the piece of the form to make this thing, and then it's kind of discouraging, but it's really important to do this stuff to get it done right, to go into production. When you're in production, man, if you didn't do one of these stupid little things, that's really easy to do. And that's what I always tell myself. I'm like, you know what, at least this stuff's not labor intensive, because that would suck if it was like, I don't know, doing hard labor, manual labor. It's just rolling out fiberglass and the same process over and over again. So I'm going to get this piece started and going. Wax it all up again. This is a different kind of material for a different approach to fixing gaps and things. So for example, when we change this radius here, we use Bondo. And that's great. So this stuff right here, this is called petroleum clay. It'll never dry out. You can have it sitting around forever. I mean, I've had this stuff for a really, really long time. You can tell because it's really, really dirty. But it's been sitting around the shop. You end up with a bunch of this in a bowl. That's what'll happen is you'll take it out. And when you're doing silicone molding, like 2-piece silicone molds for like plastic injection and stuff like that, you'll have this stuff. There's some tricks to working with it. One is it's not very malleable like that. You see that? It doesn't really want to do much for me. You can't really smear it around. So here's the secret. You take what you need, you put it in the palm of your hand, and you just warm it up. And then you watch this. Now it's like Play-Doh. It needs to get warmed up a little bit. Here's the things you don't do that I've seen. I've seen people stick that in the microwave, and then they go and they grab it, and their fingers go inside of it, and the center of it's molten hot. And it's not good. You're going to the hospital if you do that. You can heat it up in the oven, because it'll bring it up to temperature. But, I mean, you don't want it any warmer than probably 80 degrees or something like that. Well, hold on a second. Let's get the temperature finder. Okay, so let's look at this. So that stuff is 58 degrees. This one, that's 79, 73, 75 degrees. Get on there. So I was close, 75 degrees. It'll do whatever you need it to do at that temperature. So let's go over here. We got to make this piece close up because I got to make another form. I need this metal to be this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in the back. This is called making cabins, log cabins. Well, there's too much wax on that. In the mold making industry, this is called making a log cabin, because when you make silicone molds and you want to split your seams, you do this, and then you stack them on top of each other, and it looks like a little log cabin. So you want to get your material all made into little log cabins, and then you get your seam here. I'm going to come in the back. I'm going to pack it in there on the back side of that. This. And again, this is called petroleum clay. Make another little cabin real quick. I'm going to stick it in the front like that. I could use Bondo on this. I just like to show people all the different techniques that are available. Some of these are really important to be able to, we'll be in the middle of a project. We go, oh, hey, why don't I use this to do that? We have wax too that is all dried out, and it's not, you can't smear it on the mold anymore, but we keep that because that has a really good purpose too. So I gotta go get some tools to do this. I'll be right back. All right, here we have all the little tools to do this stuff. I don't even remember where I got these, but I've had them for a really long time. You just got all these little tips to them and stuff, and this is the one I use the most. Anyway, you go in there and you can take it all out like this. Really get some detailed shapes with this wax or this clay. This is a invaluable tool when you're doing silicone moldings. It's one of those things that they've been doing this way for forever. I worked at a rapid prototyping company one time, and the guys that worked there, they were all old toy makers, like the guys that made like action figures and stuff. And they were like the old school people, old school mold makers. And this was all the techniques I learned from them. And they were just awesome. It was so cool to be able to work with a generation of people that were kind of like the founders of the silicone mold making industry and tooling. They were all in their 60s when I was there, and that was 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago. And I learned all these, it's called claying up. I learned all these claying up techniques with them. So you kind of get the idea of, like, you can really get into detail with this stuff. It's like when you're using Bondo and you're knife trim in it or your cheese grating it. It's always kind of that consistency to where it's you can shave it and shape it and all this stuff. Anyway, another little trick that I learned was you kind of make yourself a little pencil eraser like that, and when you have little pieces like this and stuff you can't get out, you just kind of stab it and the clay sticks to itself and it picks itself up. But it's hard for me to get all the detail when I'm leaning over this and the camera's here, so I'm going to go ahead and clean this up and do what I need to do with it, get it to where I need it. So yeah, petroleum clay, man, it's awesome. Awesome stuff for shaping. Little piece down there in the corner, that little tiny gap, you know, you just take a little piece of it like that. You take this little piece here and you stick it on the end of that like that. Nothing ever works when I'm on camera. And then you can just pack it down in there. See that? I was all getting ready to fill this with wax and I was like, oh man, I could show you guys what petroleum clay is and how cool it is. See that? If you don't want to reuse the clay, you can dip this in acetone and it'll change the viscosity of the clay. It won't be reusable anymore, but it'll smear it out really, really well because it turns it into kind of more of a liquid paste. You're not going to get like sanded bodywork detail out of this, but you can get quite a bit of detail. That's pretty much it for today. I'm going to wait for this wax to cure out and then start the process all over again. So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys a different material you can use instead of this red tooling gel. I've been using the red tooling gel because I have some of it. It's been sitting around the shop for a long time, so I just decided to go ahead and use it. I don't have enough of it to do both sections, so I'm going to use a different material this time. I'll use a polyester, and it's the same process. It's just a different, it's polyester resin or a polyester primer instead of a red tooling gel, which is a polyester tooling gel. So I'm going to switch over to that next time and show you that, but I can't go any further for the day because I'm waiting for the wax to cure out. And yeah, I hope you guys are having a good weekend. Thanks for tuning in. Like and subscribe. Yeah, show us some support, man. We really appreciate you watching, and take care.